Good evening, everybody. My name's Simon, Midshipman. Simon, Jim's grandson.
Hold it closer to your mouth.
Close to my mouth, that better? Before I start, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting my mom.
Introduce her.
This is my girlfriend, Catherine Mentel. She's been my girlfriend for 5 years. She's a huge part of like how far I've been able to go with all this. Very big support pillar in just my experience in life so far, and hopefully get to continue that in the future. Also, special thank you to everyone here for bringing the food, and special thank you for anybody who brought the cheesy potatoes. I didn't get to have those at Thanksgiving or Christmas, so that was a delightful little treat. Thank you everyone for their service. I get that a lot. People thank me around town, and it feels a little guilty because I haven't done anything. I go to school, so sometimes I make the joke that all I should be thanking for is people paying their taxes, because without that I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to come out here and tell you all about my experience, and especially I wouldn't be able to serve in the way I am right now. With that being said, I'll start with the presentation, which is about my experience at the United States Naval Academy. So before the Naval Academy, I went to high school. Sports, I played varsity lacrosse for my high school, where I was the captain. Then I did Skills USA. I built electric and combustion powered race cars, little things. You can see one on the bottom left. I did the mountain bike club. Started out with my dad, who's in the back, for our school. That was a fun part. I also really enjoy skiing and just building things in general. I built a little ski bike to the top. And then clubs, Skills USA, did a little bit of community service. And then academics, wasn't the smartest, had a 3.6 or 5 GPA, nothing extraordinary. I think my extracurriculars in sports really carried me through it. So that leads into the application process of how to really, I got from being a high schooler to a midshipman. So it starts out with gathering recommendations from your high school teachers and basically people around the community. Before you can even apply to the academy itself, you have to obtain a congressional nomination. So that's with your state senator or district congressman. For me, that was Mark Pocan. I applied for a nomination. You give a bunch of personal information, birth certificate, social security number. They have a background check, and then you write essays. And if they think you're good enough, you'll get invited to do an interview. So for me, it was never with the congressman or senator themselves. They had a board of sometimes people just like yourselves, people from the community, usually ex-military or businesses, asked me a set of questions about who I was, what I wanted to do, why I wanted to serve, things you could probably think of on your own. After doing good enough at the interviews, I'd wait maybe a week or two and then get a decision back. I applied for all the service academies except for Coast Guard. I received nominations from Merchant Marine, military, which is the Army, and then Naval Academy. Wasn't good enough to get into Air Force or get a nomination from them. But that's not the end of it. Once you get your nomination, which is it takes you from a pool of about 60,000 applicants down to about 10,000 who get their nominations. You'll have your nomination, more essays, more personal information, and you'll apply to the academy. And I did that and basically held my fingers together. And then 6 a.m. on a regular Monday, I got an email and basically told me that I had gotten my appointment and then my report date. That report date is known as induction day or I-Day. Basically, this is the goodbye day with your family and your hello to the military and everything that the Naval Academy is. You arrive. For me, I got there. I was a chipper, not so fast, but just about your average person. They basically strip you of your identity, shave your head. This wasn't on my head. I cherish it now more than I did before. They shave you down and then they introduce you to the best people in the world, which are your detailers, which are, at first you think they're there to basically berate you, demean you, make you feel worthless, but by the end of plebe summer you realize that they are training you to become the people who are going to be leading the military or the United States Navy in the future. Which leads into plebe summer. So your first summer at the academy after I-Day, you're a plebe, and throughout plebe summer you do your basic, I'd call it your basic training.
So who are your detailers?
Oh, detailers are upperclassmen. I'll take questions at the end. Dad. So going into plebe summer, it's the closest I could relate is most likely basic training. So every morning it starts with run, strength, and strength portions, which is usually 4 to 5 miles of running, basic calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and then stretch just to make sure you don't die. And then training, there's a lot. I fit most important stuff in my opinion. Obstacle course, endurance course, difference between those being length basically. You do start with basic marksmanship for your qualifications, which starts with the M4A1 rifle or carbine, and then the M12 pistol. If you qualify that, you'll get your ribbons, and then you'll start basic sea navigation on YPs or yard patrol craft, basically small ships with basic sea navigation capabilities. And then you take basic academic exams for academic year. Think calculus, chemistry, history, whatever you're going to be doing in the academic year to basically place you in the classes that you need to take. Good old-fashioned drill, rifles, think just walking down the lane, parades, everyone has their rifles, everyone's in step, everyone gets graded. And then parades and sailing and hand-to-hand combat. We mostly did the Marine style, so it's a mix of jiu-jitsu and taekwondo. Moving on from plebe summer, you'll graduate. Before I get to that, this is our basic organization. So at the Naval Academy, you have, you can't really read it, but at the top left, you'll have the officers in charge of the entire Naval Academy, which is mainly the superintendent, the commandant, and the deputy commandant. Your superintendent is usually a vice admiral, 3-star admiral. Then you'll have the commandant and deputy, which are going to be 06s, captains or colonels. They lead everything, and then that's split into 30 companies, which will soon be 36, led by lieutenant, 03 or 04, and then senior enlisted leader. So you'll have gunnery sergeants, staff sergeants, or chiefs, then you lead into the midshipman chain of command. So you start with top left here. Move over. So when you first arrive, you become a midshipman 4th class or plebe. Currently, I'm in my 2nd year, so I'm a midshipman 3rd class with 1 diagonal stripe. 2nd class, 2 stripes, and then midshipman 1st class, you will get more You basically become the leaders of the brigade as seniors. So you have ranks. At the head of the brigade, you have your brigade commander, who's in charge of every midshipman under them. That's split up into two you have your brigade XO under them, and then that's split into 2 regimental commanders, and then so on and so forth down to the company, where then that splits into this company leadership, which you have company officer, senior enlisted, company commander, which is then a midshipman. And that is basically to mirror the fleet, where everything is broken down command levels from there. Moving on, back to me. Plebe year, you graduate plebe summer and you become chemistry 1 and 2, calculus 1 and 2, seamanship, and intro to cybersecurity. After you graduate plebe summer, you no longer have detailers. You'll now be transferred to training staff. And from that, after basically more push-ups, sit-ups, running, anything you can think of to make you upset, you get to the end of the year, which you have your culmination of sea trials. I would call it like a condensed plebe summer. They take all the best things. You do pugil sticks, log carries, more a little bit of seaman stuff with rafts, and then you graduate to Herndon, which is that center picture where we climb basically a big obelisk built on lots of tradition. At the top of that obelisk is placed a cover like mine, which is seated next to the TV. And once a plebe is able to grab that, you graduate from being plebes to being 4th class midshipman. And after that, your major is given to you, and for that, I am an aerospace engineering major, and you go into your youngster summer. Youngster summer is very, very different from plebe summer. You have a little more diversity. They start doing a little more professional development. You're sent into the fleet. You get to tour all 4, I'd call, sub-branches of the Navy. You have the Marines, Submarine Week, Surface Week, and Aviation Week. There's a small sample picture from each of those. You can see my Marine Week, where you do another endurance course in the grossest water I can basically imagine. It's just sewer water at Camp Lejeune, and it's pretty bad. We went on a submarine, Ohio class, with the USS Maryland. That's our top picture. They shipped us out in the middle of the ocean, didn't really tell us where, and sat in that for 2 days. More aviation week, we in a Cobra helicopter, sat in that, and then after ProTrimid, you have a PTE, or professional development course. Again, for me, I did CSTS, which is sailing, so I sailed from Maryland up to Rhode Island. Basically, within 4 weeks, they teach you how to sail a 46-foot boat, and then they send you off, and basically, I guess, hope you make it. Only 3 crews have never made it. I'm just kidding. After that, we get to go home and see our families. That's probably the best part. Not having to deal with people yelling at you or saluting everything. Moving on to now this year, I'm in my youngster year. I've selected aerospace engineering as my major, so that comes with more classes. We like to say that as you progress through your year at the academy, everything sucks less, but it gets much harder. So I don't have to do anything the plebes do, but I have twice as many credits. I take harder classes, and I now have a plebe under me that I'm mentoring. In my case, I got stuck with a short stick, and I have 2. So I take aerospace engineering, astrospace engineering, which is just air and space. Dynamics of engineering, it's just how parts move together. Think hydraulics, stuff like that. Differential equations, which is math, but with letters instead of numbers. Try and explain that to people. And then you have Calculus 3, Physics 1 and 2, Mechanics of Nuclear Engineering, more sea navigation, and not up there is ethics, because I guess it's a really big part is they want you to know who to shoot, who not to shoot. I found that was pretty important. And now after this youngster year, as I get closer to summer, we'll go on our summer cruises. So this is more specified than approachment. So instead of sampling each part of the Navy, you pick a branch. I'm restricted line. I have a color deficiency. I wasn't able to go pilot, which is what I originally wanted to do, but they let me stay. So now I want to become an intel officer, or I have the choice of going Marine ground, or a more specified would be aviation maintenance duty officer, just building fixed planes on aircraft carriers. But for everybody else, the normies, they get to pick to go on a ship, on a nuke cruise, on a submarine or aircraft carrier, or they go to Leatherneck, which is basically another sampling of the Marines. And then for the lucky few, now that we have learned so much in our plebe year and our youngster year, they now become and inherit the appointment of detailing the next class. So I didn't talk about it earlier, thanks to my dad explaining it, because I was planning to talk about it now. But since I already am getting into it, the detailers, it's not like basic where you have sergeants or chiefs. It's the upper class of the Naval Academy that actually are the drill instructors for the plebes. So it's not anybody coming from the outside. So it's extremely important that these people are held at higher standards. So even though the plebes don't see it, there's so much training and basically emphasis put into the detailers that they are the ones that really get the yelling part of plebe summer. Because if they mess up, they get in actual trouble. And so I'm not there yet, but I figured I'd put in this for what comes next after after finishing my youngster year. So next year, at the beginning of my academic year, I'll sign 2 for 7, which is my contract to the Navy. Basically, I have 2 more years at the academy, and then I'll have 7 minimum years in the fleet. Depending on what service you pick, it's more or less. Ring dance, it's kind of like our prom. So every class at the Naval Academy receives 1 class ring with your crest on it. Had that back here. So our crest is in the center there, class of 2026. And that class will be imprinted on a ring, and then with your choosing, you get to pick a gem that goes in that ring. Of course, you have to pay for it, but other than that, it's a pretty unique experience. So ring dance comes, and then the most important year that people say at the academy is your last year, your senior year. You'll put in your service preferences, so you tell the Navy what you'd like to do, and you'll basically have interviews and go to it. And then the Navy will throw that in the corner and be like, this is what we need. And so then they'll look at you and be like, surface officer, submarine officer, naval aviator. So that's that corner picture there, is service assignment day. Everyone gets their service assignment. It was more of a joke. People get more or less what they want, depending on their academic standing, depending on their physical standing in the brigade. And then, of course, it compares it to every other commissioning officer. Think through college programs or ROTC, all of that. It's very interesting. You feel very proud to see the people above you, even if you're not in the same class as them, because everyone celebrates it. Everyone gets a service assignment that they want or don't. But everyone's pretty happy just to commission, which comes to ship selection. So those who get selected as SWO officers will then go to ship selection, where it's basically just they go from the top of the list to the bottom, and you'll go up to a board and pick your ship and port, and from there on it's pretty self-explanatory. And then finally, the culmination of your academy experience is graduation, where you have now gotten your service assignment. For whoever's on a ship will get their ship selection, and from then on you throw your cover in the air and you're officially officers with some paperwork. Finally, Any questions? Dad?
Climbing Herndon, why is that hard?
Think of climbing a flat wall with no ladders or ropes, and then the upperclassmen grease it with lard and write their names on the side of it. 30, maybe 20, 30 feet tall,
I think you're
and there's 1,000 other people around you trying to climb it at the same time. Yeah, any other questions?
Yes. So basically, you're just jumping on top of each other's shoulders? Are they letting you jump on
Yeah,
top of each
so I can
other?
go back.
I've seen pictures.
So a lot of the times for climbing Herndon, you'll have the people in the center, you'll have your big football and rugby players in the bottom, basically holding together. And then you have we have a good nickname for it, but it's not very appropriate. But the crowd around them, everyone basically tries to push in to keep the bottom supported, so then the lighter people can stand on top of them. And we'll basically take anything you're wearing, your shirts, your shirt will basically, everyone throws in their shirts in the middle to wipe off the lard, and then they'll tie their arms together with the shirts, and like you can see in there, just try and stack one really, really tall, skinny guy on the top, and pluck the cover off. You can't throw anything up there. They tried that the year before us, and they got in trouble. They had to do it again. But I'm proud to say that we are the fastest class at the academy right now. Until this summer of time for climbing it. It only took us 2 hours and 30 minutes to get to the top of the tower. Any questions?
So the people that you're going to school with in the academy, some of them are going to be Marine?
Yes, so basically there's a lot of ways you can get to the academy. For me, I'm a direct, so I came direct from high school. I did the application process, the congressional nomination, everything straight after I basically graduated, and then went to the academy. For other people, they will not get in the academy right away, and so they'll go and do a year of college, and then they'll apply again. And usually none of their college credits will transfer, and so they'll get to the academy and basically start on the same level, even if they're like 20 or 21 compared to the other 18-year-olds around them. You'll also have priors, so you can have Marine priors, Navy priors, any branch of the military technically, but it's mostly Navy and Marine. And then after that, even if, no matter where you come from, once you get to the academy, it's your choice, quote unquote, to go where you want to go in terms of the fleet. What determines it is called our class ranking. So everything you do at the academy is basically competition. So the grades you get, the scores you get on your physical assessments, in your physical classes, in your combative classes, your sports that you play, varsity or club, and then your extracurriculars. All of that is calculated into your class ranking. It used to be that was the only thing that determined your service selection. So it used to be called service selection, now it's called service assignment. So some of my professors explained, so at the end of the year you'd have 1,000 people line up. The person who scored first in the class would be in the front, the person who scored last, and then instead of like the ship selection where they have the ships on the board, it would be naval aviator, Marine, all that, and it would just pick down until the end with basically the last person just got one choice. They've changed it now to an interview process, so instead of having, say you have someone who comes to the academy and they take a harder major, such as like nuclear engineering, and you have someone else who took English, they don't get the same grades, but one person might put in a lot more effort into being a nuclear expert. So they'll go to the interview and they'll look at them and be like, we want you for the submarine community. That person will either say, I don't want to be in the submarine community, or they will. And if their grades are less, but they have more qualification according to the community, that's usually what determines them taking it. Not always. It's a lot of your placement is determined by your class ranking, but it's a better system overall. Did I answer your question?
So what percentage of the class goes Marine?
I think we graduated 253 Marine officers last year. Usually about a quarter each go to the big branches, which would be, you have Marines, Surface Warfare Officer, Submarine Officer, and Naval Aviator. And then Naval Aviator is usually split into NFOs and your pilots. And then anybody else who doesn't fit in that group, like me, would go into Intel, restricted line communities, your SEALs, your EOD officers, supply, all of the smaller groups. That answer your question?
It's like 20%.
Yeah, 20%, 20 to 25%.
Yeah, we heard one time, the taxpayers, how much does it cost to send you guys from start to finish?
So we don't get to know the number, cost. We've kind of estimated it for the average midshipman. It'll cost about $400,000 to graduate them from plebe year to commissioning, and that's including everything from the day they get there to the day they graduate. The school itself probably only costs $100,000, but it's more of the seeing the fleet, going and planning all the stationings, everything, the people who support the academy, and all that. I wish I could give you a more stable estimate, but that's what I know right now.
So what happens if you drop out, say, your third year? Do you
Yeah.
have to?
So, for 2 for 7, that's why that exists. So, with my first 2 years, your freshman and sophomore year, basically they want you to be able to leave as much as you want. Like, they want to basically weed out anybody who shouldn't be there. So, the first 2 years are your suckiest, like I said before. They want you to feel the pressure of the Naval Academy, feel the pressure of the military, and if they feel like you're going to be a good person to continue in the fleet, they'll have you sign 2 for 7. If not, you'll either drop out on your own accord. It's called DORing. You'll sign papers and go through the whole process of getting out. You don't owe the academy anything, but they don't owe you anything. Your credits usually are dropped. They don't apply to any other colleges. And in some cases, you'll be separated. So say you do something bad and you'll be put up to a board. It's forwarded up to the Secretary of the Navy. They'll decide to go out. In that case, you'll owe back any of the money that was spent on you. It can be up to $200,000. It's pretty impressive. And if you can't pay that, they'll have you enlist into the Navy on a contract, and you'll basically scrub ships. And same for after 2 for 7. The only way that you won't end up either paying it back or going to scrub ships is if you have a medical disqualification, say your leg is broken or something through a military action. In that case, you'll have either A, they think you're smart enough and you can benefit society and they'll give you the golden ticket, which is to let you graduate and then leave and go into a civilian community. Or, like I said before, they'll leave. You won't get a graduate, you won't get a diploma, but they'll let you out without paying your fines. Any questions? It can be about academy life. It can be about things I've seen changing in the fleet. If you have any questions about that, yeah.
Where is the academy?
Annapolis, Maryland. It's not as nice there as here. A lot of crab, not enough walleye, no cheese curds, no cheesy potatoes.
I guess, do you want to talk about sea trial? I thought sea trials were kind of interesting because you kind of start with plebe summer, which is kind of like a basic training.
Sure.
And
So yeah, going back to plebe year, sea trials is a 14-hour screener, I'll call it. At the end of the year, you'll have basically, you do some training for it. They prepare you, kind of like a marathon. And you start at 2 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday. And you'll have stages. So you have dark phase and then a bunch of other stations. It'll be physical and mental. You'll have stations where you'll be planning simulated attacks against another team, playing that out, or you'll have simulated games, like we had Capture the Flag, where you had basically a sandbag that you had to capture and run back to the other side. Strategies about that. A lot of running. I think in total you do about 10 miles of running throughout the entire day. And then immediately after you finish sea trials, you climb Herndon.
You climb what?
Herndon, the big obelisk, the thing that took us 2 hours to climb. In my opinion, it used to be that you had to wait a day or two after, and for me, I wanted to do it right away because otherwise you're just really sore because you can't really do anything. You come back basically caked in mud, sweat, everything, so it's nice to be able to do this, do Herndon, and then be done.
How are the women treated? Are the women segregated from you guys, or are you?
So, kind of. So the females all have separate rooms, but it's all in the same company. So there's no women companies, it's all integrated. But they have different physical standards, and they have their own rooms. You'll have about 3 to 4 people in a room. I don't have any pictures of it. Think about the size of maybe that little closet area. You'll have 3 racks. It'll be basically wall to wall, and then under each rack is your desk, where you'll have your personal effects, and then you'll have a little closet area where you can fit all your uniforms and stuff. But everyone lives in one big dorm. I think it's the biggest dormitory in the U.S. and it fits about 4,000 people. Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Elliot. Your grandfather might have something to say about where you ended up. He was an enlisted personnel on the aircraft carrier, remember that? Let's see. When I was printing up the programs, I made a boo-boo. So if you look at your programs, or look at the program beside of you, you have to look at both sides.